Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to this panel, which is called Agencies of Change. I think some people are still eating sandwiches, but hopefully we'll see a few more people rock in over the next 5 minutes or so. So thanks to the early birds who are here. My name is Charlotte Dryden. If you're expecting Tina Hart, I'm not Tina Hart. I am Charlotte Dryden. I've stepped in at the last minute. And disclaimer, I don't know an awful lot about agents, so this is going to be as interesting for me as it is for some of you. So I run the Oh Yeah Music Centre in Belfast. It's a dedicated music hub which incorporates a venue. And while I run a venue, we don't actually spend too much time talking to agents. So I think it's going to be very interesting for myself. So the brief for today is the pandemic has spawned a host of live booking agencies adopting new business models. So we're going to get a snapshot of some of these companies and how they differ from traditional approaches, how they've sort of come through the last 3 years and what the future might look like. And for any sort of aspiring agents in the room, maybe get a little bit of advice as well near the end, and we'll have time for questions as well. So just to kick off I'll introduce the panelists, but they're going to actually talk a little bit about themselves and what we do. We've got Natasha Gregory, who's joining via Zoom from Other Artists. Hi, Natasha. We've got Simeon Pranger from Treetop Agency in Amsterdam, and Stuart Kennedy from ATC Live. So I think we'll go to Stuart first, if you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do.
Yep, my name's Stuart. I'm a booking agent for ATC Live. We're an international agency with offices in Glasgow, London and Paris. I've been working there about 9 years, and book tours for bands is a basic thing.
Yeah, I'm Simeon. I run a company called Treetop Agency, which I started, according to the Chamber of Commerce, it's been just over 7 years. It's been a little bit longer. I started this as a student, and we currently represent 52 artists from 19 different countries across genres and book tours. Yeah.
Fantastic. And Natasha?
Let's give this a go. Hi, Tasha. Mother Artists. We set up in the pandemic, so we're about a year and a half old. I run the live agency and my brother runs the management side. So yeah, probably similar vibe to ATC Live, I would say, or hope to be.
Thanks very much, Tasha. All very experienced people with different experiences as well. So it's going to be interesting to kind of get everyone's take today. I think maybe the first thing we'll do is just maybe explain what the role of an agent in I suppose the basic broadest terms. I mean, my understanding is it's somebody who's responsible for booking shows for bands in its simplest form. But maybe we'll dig a little deeper with the experts here. What does an agent do? What is their job? So, I mean, maybe start with you.
Well, the essence is booking the shows and working on the live strategy, building up their live careers. I think it's really case dependent. Depends on like when you step in, what's the team structure they have. For the majority of artists I work with, live is like 70 to 90% of their income. So good to know is that for the majority of the roster, we're just a Dutch promoter arranging the shows in the Netherlands. But then for the domestic talent and a few international ones as well, we're the international agent. So the role kind of changes depending on what exact function I have. But even as a Dutch promoter, knowing how important live is, I feel like, yeah, I'm booking the shows, but I'm also sort of the local management representative. Like, we try to build a lasting career and find strategies to build a loyal fan base for these artists. So you need to be part of the management team for the territory and work with all partners to lay the best foundation for potential success. And in the end, that's all we can do because the audience decides what they like and not.
Great stuff. Have you anything to add to that, Stuart? Or, I mean, I suppose in terms of an agent, at what point maybe do you get involved, I suppose, in an artist's career?
I guess it kind of varies again. We do look for a kind of team being in place around them, like management or PR or whatever, but, there's always exceptions to that. There's an artist we signed recently called Arnie Margaret, who's an Icelandic singer-songwriter. She had nobody in place, but Iceland Airways brought us to her and just heard her, and she was unbelievable. Now she's signed to one little independent. She's on tour with Leif Follebeck in Europe at the moment. So yeah, it kind of varies case by case. At the end of the day, we're music fans. That's why we do it. If we love the artist enough, we will work with them.
Great, and that actually brings me on to, I was going to say to Tasha, what kind of person does it take to be an agent?
I'm a bit bitty. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I think you need to have a bit of a thick skin, to be honest, and not take things personally. I've learned that over 20 years. I think you have to be very good at multitasking, uber organized and efficient, to be a good deal maker, because effectively you're trying to get good deals for your band and for their income. So a good negotiator and good with people. That's a huge part of it, to have good relations. And I almost sometimes think you are a bit of a peacemaker between the management team and the promoters that you deal with. So you have to be good at maintaining relationships and opinions and making sure that everybody stays as happy with each other as possible.
Brilliant advice. Thanks very much, Tasha. So we'll move on now to maybe a little bit about, well, the work that you're doing, and I suppose the pandemic itself presented, obviously, the unbelievable challenge to live music, which was there was none for nearly 2 years. And I'm sure that had, and obviously did have, a huge impact on booking agents in particular. But, we're back out the other side of it now. I suppose, what have the last few years been like for you as an agent, for your business, and how has the, I suppose, the work involved been compared to sort of previous years, so pre-pandemic compared to now? So you got pre-pandemic, the pandemic itself, and how you've adapted and how you're coming out of that. Simeon, do you want to kick off with that one?
Yeah, it's always funny. Like, for example, most of my family and friends don't really understand what I do, and they assume I've just been doing nothing for 2 years, which is not the case. We had to work harder than ever before. We just weren't able to pick the fruits of our labor. It's been a lot of rescheduling shows and just a lot of admin that comes with that. I must say I've watched more Netflix than I ever did before, but that's because I usually didn't have free evenings. And then what I've also done during the pandemic, because I work with a lot of development artists who, if not playing live, do not really have the budget to invest into promoting their music. And music was still coming out, so I saw this as an opportunity while I was receiving government funding to help out those artists and build media relations for the company by doing pro bono PR campaigns for the artists who needed it. So that's really helped me to just stay busy with music, because I'm not one to sit still. I can't really deal with that. And it's really helped me now, I see, with promoting the new tours we got on, having all those media relationships. And PR it's selective. Like, I don't do too many campaigns, but for our roster artists, there's a huge challenge because so many bigger artists postponed their releases that even if you do have the budget to hire a PR officer, they don't have any time anymore. Like, they're completely booked full. So I do selective PR campaigns against a way lower rate than others, just to make it more accessible, knowing that if the music gets to the right places, that will help us in the long run, booking the shows again as well. So that's what I did to keep myself busy, other than rescheduling shows. And still, like, I think I put around 200 shows on whenever it was possible with social distancing rules and all that. But now I'm happy to finally see full rooms again with people without masks and all that.
And now that you're back out there, have there been, through the pandemic, then I suppose the learning and the new ways of doing things, has any of that now moved into your business model now and how you approach booking and touring and live?
I mean, there's a few interesting things that I've noted that we really need to incorporate in strategies now. For example, when it comes to the Netherlands, everyone wants to go to Amsterdam. And I get it, because that's the only place most people know about. But then, like, 90% of the international artists touring only go to Amsterdam. So every venue is filled every night because of all those rescheduled shows. And what we've noted with the new tours we got on is that Amsterdam suddenly became the worst seller, where it usually was the best, because it's just oversaturated and the audience is spoiled. So what we do now is, like, focusing even more on smaller cities. I always did that, but focusing on, especially with the development artists, focusing on doing the cities that are like 30, 45 minutes away, where there's more appeal still, and it's way more rare for an international artist to come through. So for the audience, it's very unique for them to see an international artist coming to their town. It helps sell the tickets, because it's just an exotic factor. And then when the show's really good, that's a lifetime event for them. So by next run, they are willing to travel into the city for you, and you're not completely dependent on those city audiences. I'm still continuing to do some of the PR work, just because I've learned that I really enjoy it. And one other thing is, like, being a really small company, it was just me for the first 6 years. Seeing the bigger companies with larger overhead costs crumble a little bit, that gave me the opportunity to get a second agent on board, who I would never have gotten without the pandemic. So got a really experienced second guy, and that's been really nice to not be alone anymore, but actually have someone to collaborate with and discuss things with. And I think it's been a tough period, but we're coming back stronger than ever. Yeah.
Excellent, coming back stronger. Tasha, I'll ask you the same question. I'll ask all of you this question, because I think that there'll be experiences and new ways of working and how you've adapted. But so what have the last few years been like for yourself?
So everyone who knows me knows how honest I am. It's a struggle not to be, but I think it was pretty traumatic for many of us. In fact, being at Great Escape Festival in Brighton, I sensed still this immense trauma across the whole live industry. People still, coming to terms with what happened, in every market, in every country. If you think of Germany, they've only just lifted restrictions, so they've had to deal with 2 years of it. I am usually the most positive person there is. And I think I realized that a big part of my happiness came from the work that I do, being able to support the family and my kids. And, I went into a depression. I lost sleep at night. I became a thinker, which is like, I'm usually a doer. So it's awful being a thinker, isn't it? Jesus, I think it was the feeling of being helpless and, the extended period of not knowing how long, and just the pressures of money more than anything. So, yeah, for me, I found it really, really hard. However, big decisions come from challenging times. I would never have had the time. So I'm the agent for Idols and my brother's the manager. We're extremely close, and I would never have had the time to sit with him, to talk about, rather than sitting back, what we can do about it. And Mother Artists wouldn't have been born. But, even with that, I had to give up my salary at a big agency. I had, there were no shows on the horizon. When I think back, I'm like, that was slightly crazy, but we just went for it and set up a small agency, and very, really selfishly, I think for me and my mental health, I just wanted to surround myself with good people who I loved, who I enjoyed, simple things, enjoyed spending every day with, and reduce the roster to 30 bands, which I call my family bands that I've worked with for 20 years. and just grow step by step. But I think the problem is that we've come back, stronger than ever, is I'd say busier than ever. Usually you have half your roster wanting to tour, but now everybody wants to have a conversation on touring. So the stress is extremely high again, and I just don't think anyone's been able to deal with the trauma of the 2 years. So when you combine that together, where we have to be as fast-paced as before, it's bloody tricky. And, it was really nice that the whole industry were working together and helping each other and fighting the governments and all of that. But bloody hell, it's ruthless again. And that's just, back to my comment of having a thick skin. It's not personal. Everybody just lost everything, and now they're just fighting for limited opportunity. So yeah, I'm good. I'm happy again, because good bits of money are coming in. But I found it really, really hard. Really hard.
That's a really powerful answer, I have to say. And I mean, I think there is a lot to fix, and I think everybody did come back at 100 miles an hour. And I think we're all exhausted from the Great Escape last week, and I think we saw how crazy that was. And I think we'll come back to the challenges, actually. But Stuart, have you anything to add to that, or any sort of experiences you want to share?
Well, just interesting what Tasha was saying about the trauma of the past couple of years. We keep talking about it we knew it was going to be 2 years. We didn't. When things first kicked in, we were like, oh, we'll refrigerate it for, 4 months' time. Then it was moving and moving and moving. And I found that really hard to deal with. We didn't know when we were coming back. We didn't know what was going to happen, if we were going to come back, how it was going to come back. And we keep saying we're back now, but we're not normal now. Everything's so busy. There's so much going on. It's so hard to keep up with. I think it's going to take us another year or so to properly reset and get back into a normal way of working, where bands aren't just, going flat out all the time, wanting to tour. Everyone wants to go out, and it's difficult to get back from, nothing to 100. Yeah. But we will get there. It's just going to take time.
Yeah, everybody's fighting to get above the noise, and there just seem to be an awful lot of shows now, and everybody's trying to play catch up, and all of the rescheduled events are happening. But I suppose, fair play, you are back. You have adapted. You've done some new things, and we'll maybe dig into that a little bit as well. But how are the next 12 months looking? I think you've all sort of acknowledged we probably have another year or two to fully recover, or to get our heads around the last couple of years. But how is the next 12 months looking for your business? And how do you see the next few years playing out, given all the changes, coming back at the rate of not, but also having to acknowledge those changes and new ways that we've had to adapt to working? We'll start with you, Stuart, this time.
It's a tough one. Again, we don't really know. Hopefully things are going to reset to a normal calendar again. Having to book festivals 2 years in advance and lineups rolling over and everything else. It's just really difficult to strategize and plan things with your artist if you don't know, when they're available, what's going to happen, which festivals have slots, which festivals don't. So hopefully we'll kind of reset over the next 12 months. It's going to be continuing to be really busy. It's going to be really saturated for the next wee while everybody gets out there, tours the records are released over the pandemic and haven't had a chance to play live yet. Everything's kind of bottlenecking, but hopefully we'll start to reset and everything will kind of, refresh as it should be.
And Simeon?
Yeah, I think there's two sides to that. I really respect what you said, Natasha. It has been traumatizing, and it's been interesting that, an artist's career is always insecure. You wear your heart on your sleeve and hope people respect you for what you do, and things can grow. But then you usually, as an agent, need to be a stable factor and work with those insecurities and tell them everything's going to be all right. And this time it's been just as insecure for us. So it's the first time I had to go into therapy and make sure my mental health was stable enough to help out all these artists that I need to represent. I think I noted that in the right moment, and it's all right, but I do feel the stress every now and then, and being back in venues 5-6 nights a week. So I think, other than the obvious business challenges, like having to catch up on all those rescheduled shows, promo timelines not being what they used to, because people have to tour records that are 2 years old, and how do you promote those shows and make sure people are aware of that? And like, we just need to be super flexible and really act quickly as we know things and how they're happening. But it's also about finding the right balance in order to keep this work going. Like, going 100 miles an hour, it's really enjoyable sometimes. And I've been lucky, like, I didn't have a family to look after, so the financial risk was just for me. And I've been able to just get by on the government funding. But everything just needs to stabilize. And what I really hope over the next 12 months is that we're finally caught up on all those rescheduled shows, and the artists get the crowds that they deserve, even though promo is really tough every now and then. And yeah, working with a lot of development artists, now with everything being so packed, they need to be really patient. And I've seen artists like deciding to quit because they just didn't feel there were any opportunities for them, which is really sad. And I hope over the next 12 months, everything is going to get equalized a little bit more, and there's going to be equal opportunities for everyone again, which allows us to do the best job we can, because now we're just working with whatever we can do within the circumstances, and that's not the ideal situation. So yeah, I think it's a lot of different factors that need to be balanced, and hopefully not entirely in the old way, but in a new way, including everything we've learned also by why we do what we do over the past couple of years.
Do you think there will be a new way? Do you think people will? Because I know at the start everyone was so kind to each other those first 2 months, then it just like back to normal, you know?
Dog eat dog again.
Yeah.
I'd like to think we've learned something maybe in the unity over the last couple of years, but it does feel like everything's sort of back to. Tash, have you anything to add to that? I mean, in terms of your plan over the next 12 months and then into the next few years, how's it looking for yourselves?
It's well, I have hope again because I'm mentally better, so that's a good start. And obviously, you know, being the head of a team now, I have a responsibility to be positive. But I think from a mental state for the whole industry, we just need this summer to happen. I'm not quite believing it yet, but we need this summer to happen. And then I honestly feel like you were saying up there, that, you know, the reschedules are all done and we can all move forward and start planning again. It's true, for 2 years in meetings, when asked for a strategy, we're saying, I don't know. And that's so unlike agents. It's like, I don't know. So it's such a pleasure to be planning again. So we need the summer to happen. I think we need, from an artist standpoint, it's so busy, and those that would have normally sold out shows straight away don't anymore, the hottest of acts, and through no fault of their own. So I think it's a process of understanding about holding your nerve a little bit more, that you announce a tour, you don't expect the sellout, but that you will by the time it happens. Another thing I've noticed is that, you know, if I announce a tour too far away, people mentally over the 2 years are used to not knowing what's happening that far away, so therefore can't commit. And it seems to be that the closer it gets to a date, people can then decide, A, have they got money? B, is the world okay? Can I go to this show? And so it's literally a case of holding your nerve a little bit and perhaps saving your marketing spend for like the 2 to 3 months before the shows happen. So that's been quite scary. But what else? I think, you know, a lot of people left the business over the pandemic, understandably, crew, artists, production. So we are trying to find, you know, people to be touring with bands, which is tricky, and production. Like I'm hearing in Australia, for the first time ever, all the big promoters are sitting down and trying to share big production for the arena and stadium shows because they just don't have enough to cater to everybody coming over. So, you know, imagine having to call one of the biggest artists, asking them to change their production to suit, you know, what's available. I can imagine that's tricky conversations to be had. From a work point of view, for us, I've always worked from home. I have a Winston who's 7 and Rocco who's 3. And, you know, I'm a renowned, strong advocate for parents in the industry. I brought my kids with me everywhere to work. But, you know, I've worked from home a lot and been able to do so. So for me, I'm excited. I think that a lot of people have woken up over the 2 years, have found a more balanced life, like working from home. And I think a lot of the bigger companies are shocked that, you know, their team are going, I don't want to come back 5 days a week. And they're like, well, you used to. And it's like, well, yeah, I now realize I can, you know, look after my mental health, go for a walk at lunch, pick up my kid from school and still get the job done. So that to me is really exciting. And, you know, hopefully the bigger companies keep doing that, because then maybe if I set up Mother right, I'm going to get some good people to join and have, you know, I think we've all learned that life is incredibly volatile, that you should have a happy life and do things your way. And that's not a reflection on the good work you do. So that I'm most excited by over the next years. And I hope to see more of.
So the work-life balance has improved. Would you guys agree, or do you think you're back to?
Well, not at the moment anyway, no. It's been so busy. And I find with the hybrid working thing, if I go into the office, I find it easier to turn off at night time. But if I'm working from home, I'll be like, oh, one more email. Then it's like 9:30. You'd only been at your laptop for 12 hours. But yeah, it's something that needs to improve across the industry, I think. And we're always talking about what we can do to improve this and how we can get that work-life balance. But yeah, just now it's just been pretty nuts, for me anyway.
I mean, just to say, like, because I've always worked after the kids' bedtimes from 8 till 11. That's something I've always done. And I'm saying to people that is my work-life balance in a weird way, because I do pick up my son from school and I get to find out about his day, and I try and get the joy in that and realize I'm not missing out. But yeah, I'm like, it's amazing. Like, all the parents now from 8 till 11, we're all working. But you know, that's, I guess for me, a balance means, you know, putting what makes you, what's important to you and your core values, making sure that that comes in every day. But it doesn't mean that the work doesn't have to get done. And I think, to your point, it's incredibly busy. But you can't, I mean, another change, I'm saying no to a lot more. It's amazing. I don't want a roster of 70 bands. I like 30 bands, and that's it. You know, I'm happy just doing a little bit less, and that it's okay. Yeah.
One of the other things that we talked about actually pre panel here was I think that the industry was dominated by, you know, the bigger agents, but a lot of smaller agencies have sort of popped up over the last few years, and I think have got the trust of the industry, because it's people that are really dedicated and have come maybe with experience. How do you, as agents, you know, how do you feel you're different and better and more artist focused than maybe what we remember of maybe, you know, the bigger, badder industry in the bad old days sort of thing? Just interested to know how, you know, what is your, I guess, unique selling point as an agent? Why are you so good to work with? I'll go with Simeon first.
Oh, that's an interesting question. Like, better than someone, I would never say. Like, I just started off as a 19-year-old kid who really wanted to do this and went full bluff and was lucky enough to get the trust of some people early on and build it as I went along. There's a reason I'm still running my own company and doing things my way. I think one big thing that I really try to do, and again, it's like depending on the project and if the artist feels like that, but what I really try to do is connect my artists, make them know that they're not just a number on the roster. I try to bring artists to shows from my different artists that I think they'd get along with or really like. Very early on, I made some unofficial deals with my friends who own studios and rehearsal rooms to make use of free days on tours to make sure artists have room to connect. If they met someone at a show and they really get along, it's like, okay, I know a space where you can go. And through that, like, even throughout the pandemic, there have been artists who were used to seeing each other on the road and were missing each other so much that they ended up doing songs together by sending files back and forward. I've had artists who met on tour in the Netherlands and ended up doing their North America run together. I got nothing to do with it. But I work with music and with people that I love, and seeing them get along and, yeah, confirming that my curation is a good one, basically, is really, really enjoyable. And like Natasha called it, it's a family roster. And with not every artist that's realistic, but I think that also helps creating loyalty towards me and what I do as a small independent. Even when the bigger agents come along, when a project is successful, they know I understand where they're coming from. And yeah, when I take on an artist, it's with, maybe call it an illusion, but with the idea that I'm going to work together with them for the rest of their careers. So I want everyone to get along and know they're not just work. I work with them because I love their art.
Yeah.
And the work relationship is very important, and it's sometimes scary becoming too friendly because professional decisions can always be made. But it's really enjoyable to see when artists share your vision and everyone gets together and gets along.
That's key, yeah. That's good insight, thank you. Stuart? I mean, ATC have been around a while. And
well, yeah, it sounds like a cliche now, but we always started off as like an artist-focused agency. I joined almost 9 years ago, and at the time there were only, I think it was 4 of us working for the company, like 2 in London, 2 of us up here in Glasgow. I think there were 27 artists on the whole roster, and now there's more staff now than there were artists then. You know, it's just grown and grown and grown. And at the time, I think people always said to Alex, you know, you can't start another agency, there's not enough room for one. And he's proved them wrong, and he's built this company that, well, I like to think is very artist-focused. We have a good reputation of doing the most we can for the artists that we work with, and the feedback that we get, I think, always echoes that as well. You know, it's about strategizing, it's about working with your bands. You're not just throwing them out on tour. You know, you're looking at their Spotify and songs in like bands in town, stuff like that, seeing where the stats are, trying to figure out where they should be going. And again, we always keep small rosters. I don't think anyone in the company's got over maybe 35 bands. It's just something I've always wanted to do, because you have to provide for each and every one of them. You know, if you don't, it's their career, they're trusting you with it. That's a privilege, it's an honor. You know, you shouldn't just be booking a band and then throwing them away. We like to work with them for as long as they can.
Tash, have you anything you'd like to sort of say?
I've worked at a few agencies now, so have experience. I agree with your comment earlier. I don't think anyone who says they're better, I mean, that just becomes a bit of a line, doesn't it? So I completely agree there isn't better. I think what's been easier for me as an independent is that, you know, my ethics, my ethos, what I stand for, you know, all of that is created within the company. And then what's happened is that you attract the managers and the artists that share that ethos with you. And it's as simple as that. You know, some artists love the idea of a big corporate that have, you know, an in-house team that they can deal with, or one person. So I think it's just I think that's the difference, is that, you know, after 21 years, it's like, this is how I like to do it. Also being called mother artist, you know, there were constant struggles, and there are as women, in talking about your kids in the industry and the effect that that's going to have. And I've written articles on it, you know, the comments I've had from certain old school managers that I've worked with previously. I've been given advice not to talk about my kids, you know, all of that. I've had an old boss saying, are you sure you want to be known as the mum agent? You know, and it's like, I think by placing it out there proudly and strongly, again, it's just, You know, it's no apologies. And actually, I respect people that don't want to be part of that. And also because I don't go to all the gigs. I can't chase the bands around anymore because I need to be with my kids. I mean, I bring my kids to every festival. So, you know, we've got a busy season ahead of us. And the bands that I work with love that, but not everybody does. And you know what? That's okay. I mean, I lost a sizable band previously, and you know, my brother gave me good advice when I was upset, and he's like, look, they just don't want to work with the way you work. It's not personal. And I think when he put it that way, it's right, you know, and we did clash in how we worked. So yeah, just you know, honestly, there are great agents in every agency. I'm the worst at pitching because when other companies come up, there are great agents everywhere. For me, it's easier to find better connections. And I've just personally got rid of all the, excuse my language, but all of the bullshit. Like at Mother, we have zero tolerance for bullying, for shouting, for treating anyone badly. Like it's just zero excuse on that. But are we better? No, I think we just have a corner that suits a certain person, you know, and that's it.
Yeah, I think the industry is thinking more ethically and thinking more about diversity and inclusion. That's all excellent, in my opinion. I think we're all in agreement there. So it's great to see that people are putting, you know, mental health, well-being, the fact that you're a mother or a parent to the fore, or at least considering that. And there's still a long way to go, particularly for artists and how they can be better supported. But we'll move on. Maybe did you want to jump in there, Tash?
Say one of my biggest achievements, I won't say the name, we were at Great Escape all having beers, and a guy who works with me just looked over and said, Tasha, I can't wait to have a kid and bring them into the office. And you know, that moment, everybody was around, and I was just like, that's it. You know, to have like a tiny influence on the future generations that aren't afraid or feel like their careers will be tarnished or that will have to miss out. But as a dad, a future dad, just for me, was like, job done. Amazing. What a moment. Better than anything.
Brilliant. I love it. We'll move on to a question that I wanted to basically throw at yourself, Simeon, but it is around maybe differences between audiences and businesses and regions that you look after, because you've got 52 acts from 17 different countries. Is that right?
Yeah, so like on the official roster, we have 44 artists from 17 countries, but there's a couple of projects we're now trying out that I haven't seen live yet or have seen live years ago, and that's just what the past years created. So I feel like let's get this started without being on the website and see what the collaboration feels like before we determine if this is a long-term thing. But yeah, I mean, working with artists from so many different territories, it's highly interesting for me. Like I grew up on the Dutch Bible Belt, very white town, and I was always, a classic teenager, I guess. I just always wanted the things that I didn't have. So it just happened that way because I'm interested in people and cultures, and I like keeping things very varied. And like I strongly believe good music can be made by anyone from anywhere. And if I feel the music, I'm the right match for you. And if I don't, there's another great agent out there who might do. It comes with its challenges. One is just all the different time zones. Like It's not a 9-to-5 job for me at all. The other is that there's quite some prejudice about artists from some of the territories I work with, like working with artists from Poland or Belarus or South Africa or Hungary. Like some of the more traditional industry are kind of opposed to that or are very skeptical when artists come out of there. But I work with people who, again, like Natasha said, have a similar ethos and want to work with me just like I want to work with them.
Yeah.
And if I'm willing to fight for an artist, I'll fight through those struggles as we go.
Okay. Stuart, I know you're ATC Live, but we talked very briefly about how Drift became a part of the ATC, I suppose, vision, and you implemented this sort of streaming. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that and how that because that came out of the pandemic essentially. It's a live streaming service, and you've put like incredible shows on that have won awards now. The Nick Cave, Glastonbury as well, I believe.
Yeah, but obviously I don't work for Drift. They're part of the ATC group, which is like ATC Live, ATC Management. But I think Drift were the first kind of people to do really high production, really amazing streams that gave people a reason to buy a ticket for them. It wasn't just a live stream of a show. It was like, say, Nick Cave in the Alley Pally, like by himself playing his piano, this amazing show. Or it was Dermot Kennedy in the Natural History Museum in Glastonbury, like you said as well. And it's grown this huge success story. And now they're still going. They're still, recording like people's last gigs on their tour. I think they did a little mix the other week there. It's turned into this huge company that probably wouldn't have existed without the pandemic and the kind of forced into existence, I guess, another way to do things.
It's another string to your bow, and it'll continue on. I've just realised we've only got 10 minutes left. We actually have been chatting for quite a while. So I'm going to just move on to a couple more questions, and then maybe if anybody's got any burning desire to ask a question, we'll let you jump in. Tash, I'm going to begin with you just in terms of advice for people. If an artist wants to work with an agent, what are the basic things they should do to make sure they can work with that agent? What's the best way to approach an agency or get involved?
I think some understanding that at the minute, agents are slightly delicate. We're really, really busy with the whole roster touring. So whereas before we might have had more capacity to take on more, that's very tricky at the moment. And a good agent, considering taking on an artist, needs to make sure that they have the time to do so, because the development side of a new artist should take time and conversations and creativity. So I would almost not think about an agent at the minute, and to build, well, firstly for me it's about the songs, so just really work on your craft and your songs, and there's so much you can do before you have a team on board, and then your branding, your pictures, your image, your everything around what you're doing. Sorry, Rocco's crying for me, he's calling me for help.
Hi, Rocco.
He's crazy, aptly named Rocco.
Contributions from Rocco, welcome.
Oh, no, you don't want them. So really work on your craft, man. And we're like sheep. We hear when something's cool. Like there's an amazing band in Ireland at the moment who released the best track. The video is incredible. So the promoters start looking at it and reaching out to them. We have really good relationships with, all agents have really good relationships with promoters. So maybe send stuff to local promoters that and try and get others excited about you in your local area, because we all have those relationships with people that we trust in certain markets. And if they know about you and tip you off. But I think it's about forgetting about the industry and realizing that actually you can do a lot by yourself, and that we're only as good as the band's music and record and create. When a band really knows who they are, then we can do a better job. But if the industry come on board too early, we're not going to be able to make that much of a difference. So I think it's about artists having confidence in themselves and their abilities, and that there is streaming that you can do, or online, or your socials. There's so much that can be done before we come on board. But trust me, when something's hot or a track kicks off, and I'm sure the others on stage will agree, we all hear about it super quick, So that's it. I would almost advise to not think about it, and that if you're onto a good thing, by everybody starting to reach out, but really build yourself local.
Yeah. Don't jump in too soon. I was maybe come back to that very quickly before we finish. But Simeon, Stuart, what do you reckon?
Completely agree with that. I do think I mean, we're all just humans who like music. I mean, that's the essence of it. So there's never a wrong time to reach out, but also don't take it personally if we say, no, this is not yet the right time. Or if it takes a month for us to get back in the current environment. But yeah, I've signed artists because I discovered their demo EP on SoundCloud, and they had no structure nor any experience, but I felt something. I felt like this is something I want to get involved with. Like, there's no wrong time. Just like when you reach out to me, like sometimes you get the hi comma, or they misspell my first name, and it's like, if you can't put in the effort, why should I? Like, when you reach out, make sure you know why you reach out. Make sure that you understand what you want an agent to bring to the table, which you find difficult to do yourself. And then you never know. Like, but one thing, I guess, being from the Netherlands, and it's mainly UK people here in the room, there's good bands everywhere and they all want to play. So be realistic and think like, okay, what kind of music am I making? What other artists are out there? If I really look at myself honestly, am I at the same level, or am I providing something that the local scene doesn't provide that gives me reason to think there's room for me in that territory?
Yeah.
And if you are in doubt about your own craft, or whether it is at the level you really want it to be, or if it's the way you think it should be, then maybe wait a little bit more and fine-tune it until you have full confidence to go at it like 100%. Because if I jump on board, I go at it 100%. So I expect the same of the artist.
Same from the artist, yeah. Stuart, what does an artist need to do to get ATC live on board? What's the basics?
I think what's been said, really, just kind of, know what you are, know what you're looking to do. Like in the past, we've signed artists, or I have anyway, who've got a great EP, and then they'll send us a new one, and it's a completely different style and a completely different thing, and you're like, well, I can't work with this anymore, just having everything in place, being ready. Like Tasha said, we'll get emails from promoters, 3 or 4 times a week. We've got an A&R meeting every week as well. We'll pick up on stuff that's new, and we'll get it eventually.
How long have we got left? A couple of minutes, oh God, right, okay. Very, very quickly then. I'll put one last question, or maybe try and incorporate it into the 2 that are left here. So we talked about the artists there. What advice would you give somebody that wants to be an agent? What's 3 top tips? Start with Stuart.
Just get out there and get some experience, really. If there's nothing, I know Scotland's quite low on kind of agencies, but, work for promoters, kind of get to know people, just try and get some experience in putting on shows, getting to know the industry, getting to know the craft, and then try and look for an entry-level position. I mean, I joined as an assistant and worked my way up to being an agent, over a few years. So, you sometimes have to do that, start at the bottom.
Okay, Simeon?
Yeah, I think I was one of those guys who went in full bluff, serial experience, but passionate. And people gave me a shot, and I think the biggest thing I learned in that time is that the music community are usually very passionate, friendly people. And it's okay to admit that there are certain things you're good at and certain things you don't know or need to have more experience with. And like, if you're just getting into the industry, be open, be kind, and ask questions. And you'll learn as you go, because it's no science. Everybody's just winging it. We just found our ways through it that seemed to work.
And Tash, what would be your advice? A couple of top tips.
I've noticed because a lot of people left the industry, understandably, there are lots of positions opening up. So perhaps, be on LinkedIn and check via agencies or whatever music publications, list up jobs, entry position jobs. I think IQ tend to do some good job announcements. So because it's really, really busy, and understandably, a lot of people that lost their jobs not wanting to go back to said company. So I think there are positions opening in entry level. So just really get yourself involved and look. To be in, I mean, God, I think we like it, you know, be a real music fan and, you know, get out. Like, I think the advice, get out there, get to know promoters. I mean, I became an agent because I sold merch for the Levelers with the manager, and he was best friends with Charlie Myatt at 13, who was looking for assistant. I think, you know, luck comes when you make yourself present in whatever scenario that is, because otherwise you're not going to hear about stuff. So just try and get involved in whatever way that is.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thanks to all of you for your advice and your responses. And I'm just wondering, is there any questions that anybody would like to throw up to the panel? Yep, got a mic there.
Thank you. Hi, my name's Dana. I was wondering if you've found that venues are able to provide a higher guarantee for artists coming out of the pandemic, as obviously the world is much more, seems to be getting more and more expensive these days, and if just the cost of doing business essentially. So if that's something you found is a conversation or something that, yeah, venues are able to take into account.
Who would like to take that, go first?
It's kind of hard because that rising cost is hitting everybody. You know, it's hitting all the promoters and all their providers and everything else. And, you know, in the UK and Europe, a lot of promoters have to, you know, they have to book the venue, they have to pay the venue hire, so it's hitting everyone. At the moment, ticket sales are a little bit lower, so I think we might even have a time where the guarantees are a little bit lower than they used to be until things kind of level out again. It's just a tough time with so many, you know, it's such a saturated market. And the costs are hitting everybody across the board, I think.
Yeah, absolutely right. The unfortunate answer is no, and that's also because problems are noted, but then there's bureaucracy, and bureaucracy is slow. But in the Netherlands, like conversations are really happening about the fair practice code that was introduced about fair payment for everyone. And like commercially, we can't provide that. So it's all about the governments and also the rights organizations to provide funding in a way to be able to execute that. And those conversations are going and plans are coming to table. And it seems like on a starting level, things might move in that direction a little bit more over the next 2 years or so. But it's a super slow process. Yeah.
Okay. Tash, did you hear the question? Have you anything to add?
I did. It's a night perfectly, but I think new bands are going to have, everything's gone up. New bands are going to have to up their ticket price as well to make sure that all costs are covered. But new bands getting £100 a show has been happening since I started 21 years ago, and there's got to be something wrong with that. You know, it's not the venue that makes the offers, though, on a normal headline show. It is if it's a direct, you know, whoever's promoting, if it's an in-house promoter at the venue, it's up to them and the agent and the artist to cost appropriately. But as the guy said, everything has gone up. So I think we're going to lose a lot of bands, sadly, over the next couple of years, because it's tricky. I don't know if I quite navigated how it's going to go with Brexit as well. So I think we should do this in another year and then like reflect on where we're actually at. But it should go up, but everything's gone up.
Yeah. One thing I'd like to add here as well is that we're not like, I don't feel like I'm only representing the artists when I'm negotiating. If I push for higher fees and let promoters take a loss on shows time and time again, that in the long run will affect my relationship with those promoters, hence the opportunities I can offer to those development artists. So if there's managers who are pushing for super high fees, it's also my job to tell them no sometimes, say, no, this is not realistic in the current moment. I understand where you're coming from and we need to work towards that goal. But if we ask for that now, promoters are likely to make a loss on every show you do, and you'll not get invited back. And working with a lot of young artists who, if everything goes well, have like 30, 40, 50 years of touring ahead of them. It's like, we don't have to do everything at once. We need to take it slowly. And I completely understand, like, in this godforsaken economy, everyone needs money. But there's a lot of forms of value that are not monetary value. And as an industry, we shouldn't lose sight of that. And we want to make sure there's longevity. And sometimes that means we need to hit the brake and be realistic to make sure deals are fair to everyone involved.
Yeah, I think that could have opened up a whole new hour of discussion. I think it's a really important discussion, I think, to be had. But unfortunately, we have to wrap up now. Is there anybody else that wants to ask a question quickly? What I will say is the guys are around, aren't you? If you want to have a chat with anyone, I think you might have to run off, Stu. But, you know, don't be afraid to reach out, ask a question, get in touch, drop us an email. I'm sure we can try and answer a question. That us? Okay, listen, thanks everybody for coming. And please give our panel a round of applause. And thank you, Tash.